Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this session. I'm David. I'm an Android engineer at Blinkist. And for those who don't know, Blinkist is an application to get the main insights and the key ideas from more than 3,000 books. And today, I would love to talk to you about a topic that I'm very passionate about, which is accessibility. The purpose of this talk is to give you an introduction to accessibility, describe the main accessibility services for Android, and the things you should do to help those work properly. In the end, I will mention some frequently asked questions about this topic. And then let's get started. I want to start with a question for you. How many of you need glasses here? Quite a lot, right? But this is kind of the trivial thing you may think when it comes to accessibility. I would love to go one step further. How many of you here are left-handed? I see quite a few. Actually, it's very common to be left-handed. Around 10% of world population is left-handed. But then, why am I talking about left-handed people in an accessibility talk? Because we, as left-handed people, we need to face a world designed for right-handed people. So if you're left-handed, probably you face yourself these situations once in your life, like not able to sit in a chair designed for left-handed people, or not being able to open a can. Also, probably you couldn't use a scissors designed for right-handed people, or something even more expensive, you could not use a set of golf clubs. But I want you to think about something. Imagine you have a company that design and sell golf clubs sets. Automatically, you can get 10% of the market size if you think about left-handed people. Okay, I would love to move to the next question. Is anyone here colorblind? I see no hands, but it's very common. Probably you know this kind of games where you need to tap bubbles that are together of the same color. This is how a person with someone with a normal vision will see the board. And this is how someone with proteinopia will see the board. It affects 1% of males and 0.01% of females because that's a genetic disease. Basically, you cannot see red colors. There are other ones like deuteranopia that affects even more people, and you cannot see green colors. And two more that are quite rare. That's called tritanopia and monochromacy. So think about it if you're designing a new game or something that only relies on colors. There is, talking about numbers, there is a report on accessibility from the World Health Organization that says that more than 1 billion people, again, 1 billion people live with some kind of disability. And that's about 15% of world population. That's a lot. I mean, think about it. It's 1 out of 7, 8 person out there. I highly recommend you to take a look at this report because it also covers demographics, consequences, and recommendations for us as a society. It's a very, very nice one. When talking about disabilities, I would love to emphasize something. Disabilities are not equal to health conditions, but rather mismatch human interactions. And when we're talking about disabilities, we can classify them by temporality and type. So when we're talking about temporality, we can say that something is permanent, that could not be reverted. Something is temporary, that will be reverted at some point in time, and something that only depends on your situation. Just to highlight a couple of examples regarding disabilities by type, I would love to mention touch. For example, something is permanent when someone only has one arm. Something is temporary when someone went through a surgery. And something is situational when you're, for example, holding a baby in your hands and you cannot use the other one. So talking about vision, for example, something is situational when you're a distracted driver. Talking about hearing disabilities, it could be that you're deaf, but also could be that you're in a very loud environment like a concert or something like that. Talking about speaking disabilities, it could be that you're nonverbal, but also that maybe you have a very heavy accent. For example, you're not a native speaker like me, or you're talking to someone who is from a different part of your country. Now, I really want to go deeper into two types, which are visual and cognitive impairments. So when talking about visual, we can say that this is a subtype called low vision. And again, this is not only happening if you have a severe disease, but it could happen in your daily basis or at some point in your life. I'm pretty sure this image is pretty familiar to you. Seeing someone in their 50s and using the phone this way. He's, by the way, my father. Also, we can talk about low contrast. And again, you don't need to have a very severe disease to experience that. It could be that you are using your phone with a very strong sunlight. Again, color blindness, as I mentioned before with my example, or something more severe like partially detached retina. This is how people would see life, or maybe you are completely blind. Then I would love to mention cognitive impairments. And in this category, you could find someone who is suffering from epilepsy, someone who is suffering from anxiety, which is pretty common nowadays, or some kind of motion sickness. This is only a very small list, and in order to design things with this kind of users in mind, you should avoid heavy animations, heavy blinking animations, especially with red colors, because it may cause something called seizures that are alteration in your brain activity. So for example, you should avoid doing things like that. In order to design UX for people with anxiety, also you should avoid this kind of things. I'm pretty sure you recognize. Cool. So yeah, we talk about color blindness. There is a very famous test to know whether you could be potentially colorblind. So here in these 4 circles, you should see 4 numbers. Cool. Okay. So yeah, we talk a lot about disabilities, but then as engineers, we have a very important role in this society. So technology is here to help. I would love to highlight 3 examples of very nice projects that help a lot of people out there. First one is from Google. It's called Lookout. It's currently in beta in the US, and basically uses the AI from Google to help people with some kind of visual impairment or blind people to know what's around them. So here you can see they basically point the camera to any object around them and basically will tell them what's there. In this case, it's a dog, but it could be a chair, or it could be a tomato sauce bottle in a supermarket. Can you imagine that? The next one comes from Spain. It's called Out Barriers, and it's basically like Google Maps with vitamins. They use the beacon technology to guide blind people, and it gives you accurate real-life instructions. So when you're approaching a commerce, it will tell you, hey, this is an Italian restaurant. There's a big door, and then 4 steps up. The cool thing is that they made a business out of it. So again, remember, 15% of world's population. And the last one is from Joe Birch. Probably you all know him. It's a very popular Android developer. And basically, he designed and built a guitar that teaches you how to play it. It's designed for blind, deaf, and non-verbal people. And it includes an LCD screen and a speaker connected to Google Assistant. Again, I highly recommend you to check out the Medium article, which is full of technical details and very, very nice. Great. Now, I would love to talk about accessibilities and get back to Android. So accessibility services are the ones that you could find under the accessibility section in your settings. And you can also download more from Google Play. Today, we're going to cover 4, which are Talkback, SwitchAccess, font, and display size. But you can find a lot of them there under the accessibility settings. For example, color display tools, button power to end calls, auto-rotate screen, and then mix the both right and left audio channels in only one. Okay, let's get started with Talkback. What is Talkback? It's basically a screen reader. It's designed for people with severe visual impairments. And as you can imagine, they cannot see the screen of their phones. But they can hear the voice, and they can tap and swipe there. Okay, I'm going to cover here an example using Talkback, but my main recommendation is for you to spend 1 or 2 afternoons playing with it, because it's a very nice experience. Okay, in this case, this is our application, and we're going to tap on the search button there. We're going to search for a very specific book, and then trying to open it. So here, we will do right swipe to go to the next element, or left swipe to go to the previous one. Here I will say we're showing the keyboard. For every single character, it will read it out loud. And now the clear query button, and then the name of the book. Yeah, the book is very well chosen, right? Okay. The next one includes a component, which is a SIG bar. And there, when you focus on it, you will get updates while you're focusing on it. So here you can see it's 9%, 15%, and then when we move to the next element, it will be read out loud. But also you can navigate through the app using a contextual menu. So in this case, we have a view pager with 2 pages. And if you want to go to the next one, and of course you cannot swipe right like we all do, you can do something that is called swipe up and right at the same time, like an L. And then it will display you this contextual menu. So in this case, it will tell you, hey, there are 2 items. Next page, click on it, multi-page view, and then we manage to go to the next one. The cool thing is that you can implement custom behaviors. So for example, the Google camera implemented this. And at some point, it will tell you, hey, there's one face, if you use the front camera, there's one face, it's center, 30% of screen, it's good for selfie. And then you can see yourself taking a selfie with Talkback without seeing the screen. The cool thing is, can you imagine 10 years back, someone with a very severe visual disability taking a selfie of themselves without any kind of help? That's pretty cool, right? Cool. Let's move to the next accessibility service, which is SwitchAccess. Basically, it's designed for people with motor impairments, and it uses 2 or more switches, buttons, to navigate through the app and basically through the phone. The very nice thing is that it only depends on buttons, so you can install them everywhere. For example, on top of a wheelchair, and that someone with a very severe motor disability like tetraplegia could action only using their head. So a very quick example too. In this case, we want to turn the dark mode. So for that, we go to the next element, pressing the first button. We go to the next one, again, pushing the next button. We highlight the dark mode one, and then when we're ready, we tap on the other switch, and it will accept the current focus item. Cool. Okay. The next one highly impacts you as a developer because people can change how they want to see text in your app and also how they want to see the views in your app. So they can make it bigger or smaller, and same for text. So consider this when you're designing your next pixel perfect screen. In our case, for example, this is how it looks with the smallest and biggest font. And this is how it looks with the smallest and biggest display size. As you can see in the last example, almost the whole screen is taken. Okay, but as Android developers, what can we do? Okay, I'm not going to show only code here because it may be that you're working in a 500 company with a team of 50 designers there, but maybe you're an indie developer, and you should consider this when you're developing your next application. So the first advice is don't rely only on colors to indicate the state, because as I mentioned before with my previous example, someone with some kind of color blindness could not see there is an error in the image in the right. The next one is about contrast ratios. So to define that is how we measure the contrast between background color and a text color on top. It could be 1, which is black on white and on black, so it's no contrast at all, or 21, which is black on black. Sorry, white on black, which is the maximum possible. So make sure you have 4.5 for very small text and 3 for bigger text. You can check your colors in some util web pages like contrastratio.com, but I'm going to show you one example. So again, this is how it looks for ratio 21, for ratio 12, 4, and 2. And I'm pretty sure that it's very hard for you to read the last column. So if we follow the constraints that I mentioned before, those 4 really passes the test, but this one fails. This one passed because the text is bigger. And of course, with ratio 2, it's almost impossible to read. Then the next advice is make sure the touch target is enough. At least your views, your icons should have 48 by 48 dps at least. And the thing is, this is very useful for someone with motor impairments like Parkinson's disease, but it will benefit everyone. And I'm pretty sure you faced this situation at least once in your life, that you want to close this annoying banner, and you try really, really hard, and you end up tapping on the advertisement. Then please use SP as much as possible, or use it by default. Because as I mentioned before, this size will scale according to user preferences. So if they want to see everything super, super big, this will scale accordingly. Then make sure Talkback is working as intended. Because you don't want to leave your users with Talkback enabled in the middle of the jungle without any kind of exit. In this case, they were using a player, an audio player, but they could have been anywhere. So for that, there is an attribute called content description that you should always set for your image views and image buttons and every single interactive view that has no text, for example, text views or edit text. Also, you can do it programmatically. So imagine you have this play pause button. You can modify it accordingly to the current state of the playback. Okay, there's one attribute that it's called important for accessibility. And the cool thing about it is that you can hide elements that don't add any value to your application or someone with an accessibility service enabled. For example, I can think about your company logo. It doesn't add any value to the Talkback navigation. So in this case, you can say it's not important for accessibility. Also, you can set it to no and hide descendants, and it will hide everything in the hierarchy of that view. Cool. The next one is play with the focusable attribute, because in this case, it will read out loud all the children it has. In this case is the book title and the book author, and it will be read out loud at the same time. I mean, one after the other. So if you want to create hierarchies of information, play with this attribute. The next one is for edit text. Make sure you set the hint attribute. This is the label that is going to be announced when they focus on this particular edit text. And if you cannot, or you don't want to, you can also announce it with a different view. In this case, it's a text view that announces for the email edit text. For that, we use an attribute called label4. And finally, if you can improve your UX, thinking about people with an accessibility service enabled. In this case, a spoken one. For example, we could actually replace a sick bar, which is really hard to manage and to play with two different buttons that rewind and go fast forward 15 seconds. In this case, this is what we do have, and this is what do we want to achieve. And it's actually changing the UI for your app. In order to do that, you need to get the accessibility manager from the system and make sure that this list is not empty. The one that you pass this feedback spoken flag from the accessibility manager. Then use custom views the right way. I'm not going to go very into that, but there is a very, very nice article from Airbnb that explain how they did this price range custom view work properly with Talkback. Well, then, not sure if you knew, sometimes accessibility is referred as A11Y. Great. So now we kind of know what do we need to do. But how can we make sure that everything is correct and everything is passing? The first one comes for free on Android Studio, and it's lint. And for that, my only advice is take a look. Please don't disable the content description rule. And of course, do not hack it. Do not do things like that. Please. Cool. The next one is very rare. I saw probably very few people using that. But there is an option under developer options when you enable it in your phone that allows you to see how people with some kind of color blindness see the whole phone, but in particular your application. In this case, it's black and white, but also you can simulate things like protanopia or deuteranopia, as I mentioned before. Then the next one, it's probably the fastest wing. It's an application which is on Google Play. It's from Google. That it's called Accessibility Scanner. And basically let everyone, not only developers, take a look to your app or to every single screen in your app and highlight the main issues. So in this case, for example, you can see how this is highlighting that our touch target size is small. It's not big enough. Then we have a content description missing. Oh, wow. Then multiple item descriptions and low contrast in your app. This is very, very handy, and I highly recommend you to download it and check if your application is accessible or not. Then the next one, I'm not going to go very, very deep here, but basically, if you already have an Espresso setup, you can enable accessibility checks. That it's going to provide you the same things as Accessibility Scanner gives you, but in an automated way. Okay, you also have pre-launch report. Probably you already know. But when you upload a new artifact on Google Play console, it will give you a very detailed accessibility report and your main issues. And again, it's not a developer tool, but please learn how to use these accessibility services, especially Talkback. It's very funny how you cannot control anything, and it's very hard to do it. And you can also do user interviews and see how people with any kind of disability using these accessibility services use your application. Then the last part of this talk is about collaboration. How to make everyone aware of this. So in our case, we use a design system. This is part of our color palette. And using that, and everyone talking the same language, we are sure that every single color matches the contrast ratios, and every single component has the appropriated size. Then have a continuous feedback during your development process. In our case, before we merge anything, we need to check this checkbox. We also have a meeting to talk very informally on a bi-weekly basis with our designers about all of this. And then finally, a document to talk, basically to let everyone that comes new to the team about accessibility for Android, which is basically this presentation written down. Also, you can designate an accessibility advocate in your team whose mission is making everyone aware of this topic, organize workshops, and keep everyone in the loop. But again, this is a team-wide effort. You shouldn't rely on only someone to know about this kind of things. And finally, I would love to reply to some frequently asked questions. And my first one is, it's very nice, but how do I convince my managers to invest time on it? Probably almost everyone here is wondering. Okay, we all know that this is the right thing to do. However, this is not the language that every single manager or CEO could understand, probably. So, in order to make them aware, think about my first example about left-handed people. The more market size you get, more likely your revenue is going to improve. And also, if you have your application really, really polished to work with accessibility services, maybe someone who is blind is more eager to pay for your subscription or your service. And finally, every single change is going to benefit everyone out there. Okay, next one. I am the only developer of my company. I can allocate that much time to fine-tune my app. Okay, make it part of your development process. So make sure your touch target sizes are okay, the contrast ratios are fine, and don't ignore warnings. Okay, my company doesn't allow me to even write unit tests or any kind of test. So for that, please advocate for it, try to show the value out of it, and I mean, worst case, you can always change your companies. But shouldn't this be a public requirement when it comes to public entities? Let me think about it. Freaking yes. So to recap, small things will have a very big impact. Make it part of your development process. Advocate for it, and most importantly, learn more about it. Try to gather all the information out there. There's a lot. And it's a very time-wide effort. Everyone should be on the same page. Because my main point here, talking to you in this 32 minutes, is that you need to show empathy to every single user using your application. A few very important people to follow that is very into accessibility here. I would love to especially thank Taul Monim for all the help that he gave me to give this talk. And if you want to know more, here there are a couple of links. I will share these slides in my Twitter, which is this one. And thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here.